Yes, the Hurling show is back again this week. Limerick are top of the league, looking absolutely imperious. Albeit Waterford are looking to become the latest Division 1B team to win the league. They're flying, but then again, they've only played Carlow, Laois and Offaly. And I know that'll upset you boys, and it'll upset the people of Carlow and Laois as well. But that's kind of the facts when it comes to the Leyland and Hurling right now. As ever, joined by the two Biffos, Will O'Callaghan and Michael Verney. How are you doing?
Good.
Good chat.
Just thinking before we came on here, and in the past couple of days, there are some great GA nicknames out there. One that stands out to me in the home club of Bursley, I'm not going to name the man because it's a bit of a harsh nickname, but he'd be afraid of going into a challenge, and his nickname was Chicago because he was windy.
Nice.
There was one other nickname for him as well. Now, if there's a couple of lads from Bursley, they'll probably end up tweeting it at us here. But there's another, the same guy, his nickname was Handbrake because he'd pull out of a tackle. Do you come across any good ones yourselves?
Yeah, there's some pretty good ones now. Yeah, we got some great reaction online as well. But one now that would definitely stick with me, and I am going to name his name. Like, you know the way when a player is growing up in the footsteps or in, trying to follow in someone's great footsteps or whatever, yeah. So like Brian Wheeletton's son Aaron, obviously there's no way he could ever be as good as Brian, but we were preparing for the OA club final and we trained in Banagher one night under lights, and I don't know, did he do something or miss something or something like that, and someone just said, Jez, you're some dud. So it just stuck. It just stuck ever since, and he even calls himself Dead Dud. So yeah, that's just stuck with him ever since. You might as well just embrace that you're never going to be as good as your father. In fairness, like, you know what I mean?
Actually, speaking of father-son, I'll give you a shot at it now in a second. Well, there's a guy down home, and this isn't really related to hurling so much, but he's called John Foot, and his son is Tommy, and he's Tommy Toe. So John Foot and Tommy Toe. I always loved that one. Will?
I've always liked Stephen Picky Maher as one of the kind of more strange ones, because he's probably known more as Picky Maher, the Laois forward, than even Stephen Maher. Right. And the reason for the nickname, again, is nothing particularly complimentary. Apparently when he was 1 or 2 years of age, he used to have a habit of picking things out of the bin. Right. And so his uncle just called him the Picky or Picky Maher, and he's now Stephen Picky Maher, and probably better known as that than his actual Christian name.
You know you've met it though when people start referring to your nickname. It's like Cheddar Plunkett.
Yeah, or
you
Bubbles,
know when people are calling you by the nickname, you've met it.
Well, like if you look at the Kilkenny hurlers of the previous 15 years or whatever, their surnames became superfluous. It was Henry, Tommy, JJ.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah.
Richie.
Very true, yeah.
Frank Roach of the Evening Hurl, he's after tweeting in the hurls in the All-Ireland build-up last year, the best Dublin Tyrone nicknames, and he goes, some are obvious, some not so much. Derek O'Farrell for Dublin was Zeno Daff.
I love that, yeah.
Paddy Moran was the Ram. Rory O'Carroll, Oblong Head, harsh enough. Ricey McManaman, Wiki Woo was Niall Sludden. Horse, Gavin Devlin. The Block, Conor Gormley. Hub, Kevin Hughes. Wheelie Bin, Kieran Whelan. Blue Panther, Anton O'Toole, brilliant nickname. J.O. Smokey is Joe McNally. Nipper, Alan McNally. The Pope, Jimmy Keaveney. And Muggsy, of course, as well. So plenty of great nicknames flying around. Now I'll give one or two more people a shout out. Paul Kelly being called the Bishop, that's from Chris Horn. Tommy Turkey legend Daly coming in for Jake Neville, not sure who that is now as well. And someone just tweeted in at me, an anonymous profile, you wouldn't have to stray too far from your own home club for nicknames, lad, which I suppose I started out with. Yeah, I gave a good old show to Bursley there as well.
There's a couple other very good ones I have to mention. Some PC, some not so PC. Shane McGrath, ex-Tipp hurler, was on. He said about a nickname Chili because the guy's father's name was Con Carney. Yeah. Which I just think that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's classic.
Pat Nolan of the Mirror was on. He said there was a player from his home club in Tullamore and his name was Horny and his son is called Semi or Semi. There's a couple more. Kenny the Bird O'Connor from New York apparently went up to catch a ball and was in the air 10 minutes, so they call him the Bird. Yeah. Any other ones? Aoife O'Donoghue, that plays with Galway, is called Two Hands because apparently she never went down with two hands since she was a child to pick up a ball, and it's just kind of stuck as well. There's a 4-goal McGee as well. I think that name stuck with him. He scored 4 goals in under 21 final. I think he's over 70 now. So yeah, I think they're great. There's some brilliant ones there.
A few other people tweeted in. Tomas McCarthy, Waterford journalist. Sean Growler Daly.
He got that great goal against Galway in the 98 quarter final at Peach.
Derek Lynch from Clare goes, come down to Kilmurry Bricken if you want the best selection of nicknames. We have Horse, Rabbit, Moose, Butcher, Cookie, Lada, Pato, Macca, Potman, Puddin, the list goes on, not to mention Hog, Bug Warrior and Pencil. So plenty of them coming in. It's a hot topic, let's be honest. Not so hot a topic is Offaly's form at the moment. Bottom of Division 1B, not looking good. lost to Laois at the weekend as well, which I'm sure cut the two of you up. We have a bit of audio from Kevin Martin here. This is his reaction to the defeat.
There was no intensity in their game in the first half. They were playing reaction hurling. They weren't off the mark. They were getting turned over, weren't getting breaks. Which really was uncharacteristic of them, because we had a good week in training and they were going well. So it's something we're just going to have to touch base with.
Normally, an Offaly man never has to raise his game against Laois.
In fairness, the Laois were going well enough. There's some nice young players coming up. In fairness to them, and I know a good few of them. They're decent enough. So it was going to be a tough battle. But in fairness, they got the scores up in the first half and just left us with too much to do.
You started Joe Bergen, and he was one man was working hard.
Yeah, in fairness to Joe, he's an old soldier, but he's a good one, and he tried hard. I thought Colin Egan emptied the tank. He was very good as well. There's questions to be asked. The players have to ask themselves questions too about their commitment and tonight, and whether they gave everything or not. So we just asked them to empty the tank. Again, they'll have to digest it over the weekend, and we're back in Tuesday night, and we'll talk about it and see where we can tweak things and make it better.
Very interesting to say players have to ask themselves about their commitment, because that's the sort of thing that Jose Mourinho's done, Maurizio Sarri's done in the football world. Not really sure it's particularly productive to do so. Is it a case that the players need to look at themselves, or does the manager need to look at himself?
I think there has to be collective responsibility on this one, because I went into O'Moore Park. I was on the way back from the Mullinlough and Dr. Croke's game, so I was a bit late getting into Portlaoise for the 7 o'clock start. And when I got in the gate, it seemed Offaly were doing okay. The scoreboard in O'Moore Park, as you kind of turn the corner to go for the stand, I think at that point it read Offaly 4 points and Laois 3. And I'm thinking, listen to a bit of the commentary going in the door, and thinking Joe Bergen's back into the team. Offaly seemed to have started reasonably well. And then what followed, I don't know whether I kind of just started this by walking in the gate at the time, was one of the worst 20-minute performances I've ever seen from Offaly. They were hurling against a strong wind, but it was actually Laois's running game that seemed to be causing the most problem. Like Paddy Purcell, who would have been surely known as the biggest threat that Laois would have from the middle of the field, just got oceans of space during the match.
Well, it's been obvious for the last 3 or 4 years the quality he has.
Yeah, and it's not like he was doing massive scoring, but he was running serious problems. He was winning a lot of frees, which Mark Kavanagh was putting over. Kavanagh was using the wind quite well as well, and Laois ran off 2-6 or 2-7 without a reply. And probably the most worrying thing was Offaly weren't winning any tackles whatsoever. Every time they went to tackle, it seemed to turn into a free. And when Offaly did get the ball, they were just so reliant on trying to puck aimless ball into their forward line, which is paying absolutely no dividends at all. Offaly found themselves in 12 or 13 points down in the game. You knew it was dead at that stage. Anyone who maybe saw the result afterwards and went, that's a 4-point deficit at the end. For me, the game felt like a 10-point win for Laois. Easily.
It was the most flattering scoreline I've seen in a long, long time. If there was 25 balls pucked down on the Laois half back line in the first half, we won one that I counted. One. Colin Egan won one and we got free. There's a couple of things worrying. I don't like when a manager keeps referring to his squad as they regularly. I don't like that. I think it should always be we, and there should be a collective responsibility, as Will said as well. It was just really worrying, because we couldn't stem the blood loss. You could see there was serious momentum building up. Like, drop a sweeper back against the breeze if you have to. If it means they're not going to get a second goal, you keep yourself in the game. If they're able to hit points from out the field, fair enough. But we didn't do anything different. We played the same in the first half as we did in the second half, which I thought was very, very strange. And like, if you go back through the results since the Dublin game in the league last year, like, the beatings are not good at all. And
they beat Laois, which I think was the only win that they had last year outside the Dublin game at Croke Park. And I think most Offaly supporters who were leaving Croker that night were enthused by the type of hurling. Obviously things looked pretty good. Beat Laois a couple of weeks later, which was enough to qualify for the quarterfinals of the league. And you start thinking the basis is there for a good campaign. But God, the 12 months since have been a very, very dark year. And to me, the worrying thing was, Joe Bergen aside and Shane Dooley coming on in the second half, this might be a sign of what Offaly have over the next few years when those guys are gone.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it is. I think the hens are kind of coming to roost now of everything that's happened over the last couple of years. Managers coming and going. The Hurling Implementation Committee, who were basically put in place to kind of change the structures in Offaly hurling, and who put a template in place for us to follow. That committee is no longer in place now, basically because of lack of communication with the county board and an inability to work with the county board. So a lot of these things are just coming back to roost now. And I actually saw someone have it, and I know the fellow well, having a pop with you on Twitter about, why don't you get involved and why don't we get, like, say like Will is living up in Dublin, I'm involved in my own club. Like you do what you can, like, but no one person. You're allowed to criticise or constructively criticise like things that are going on. People just want to see some form of change.
I think what people probably found most disheartening as well was when Liam Hogan and the rest of that hurling review committee came together, and there was about 10 or 12 ex-county players who were involved. They went through a pretty long process to put a 40, 50-page document together.
And it's top-notch.
Yeah, and it was.
Is top-notch.
Yeah, there were some very good ideas in there. And even if some had been implemented at the start, and then if money had been an issue and maybe implement them over a longer period of time, it could have worked. I remember seeing the football document at the same time, because Offaly were running parallel reviews because it seems the crisis is never ending. The football review was about 4 pages long, and it was either side of 2 pages of foolscap paper. And it was actually the hurling committee who ended up putting the football committee review together at the time as well. So it was very clear there was one very professional setup there. There was one that didn't look so professional. The hurling committee definitely, I think, had the brain power to make this work. They then put a hurling director coach in Brian Carroll in place, and everything seemed like it was going to be implemented through the clubs. Really, that was the idea, that they were going to hand this document over. It would be a living document and everyone had to implement it. The county board seemed to show resistance to it from the very start. It was only really after it got leaked to the media that it actually got implemented in the first place, and then within a few months, just sheer frustration that people stepped away. So when someone says, do you want to get involved, you see the months that committee put in terms of work, and then for it all to come to naught, really, I'd say there's a lot of frustration for people in terms of volunteerism as well.
So Michael, is that a case of the county board is there, it has its power, possibly some other group of intelligent guys coming in based on the quality of the reports you're talking about shows that they perhaps have the brain power, and then the county board is resisting based on the idea that, well, we're not going to be told what to do by you upstarts and we're going to guard our power?
I'd say you've described it fairly well. I don't think people like to relinquish power at all, particularly when you've been in positions of power for some time and positions that have been juggled somewhat throughout a period of time. And like, the thing I would wonder is, like, if you look back at our success or lack thereof over the last 10 years, like, it's quite obvious that that change is needed, and it's very, very sad to lose a group like that had a lot of intelligent people and with a lot of foresight, and now they were going to be heavily involved and have a chance to make change, and now they're gone.
Feels like Groundhog Day with Offaly, to be honest.
Yeah, the only one more thing I would say about the management side of things and some of the comments that Kevin has made afterwards, and you're saying there's kind of a Jose Mourinho feel about it, is a little bit later on in that interview, Kevin reeled off a number of players who still have to come back in, Keelan Kiley, and I think Conor Mann is back in now at the moment. He's talking about Ushin Kelly coming back after surgery, and he was saying he's going to have a different team for Championship than he has for the league. The only worry for that is that guys will drop off and guys aren't going to commit. There's some very inexperienced players, and maybe some supporters have been a bit annoyed that it's like, right, there's intermediate standard players who are on the team at the moment. But the fact is, they're the guys in the possession of the jersey. And if you're the manager, the first thing you want to do is probably protect and build up those players. It's something that Eddie Brennan did after the game. He spoke about how Laois are building in a collective way and it's not about individuals. If I was a player, I would hate to think my manager is saying, well, actually, it's okay, 3 or 4 of our star players will be back in a month's time.
I don't think things are going to get any better this weekend at home to Galway.
Unless the Galway bus doesn't get to O'Connor Park.
Yeah. Speaking of Galway, I saw quite an interesting tweet from David Connors from the Tuam Herald this week. It's up on the screen there saying, last year's under-21 Galway hurling final down for decision next Wednesday under lights. The disregard for players and the competition by this scheduling is laughable. Players who are studying in Dublin forced to make the trip midweek and no chance to celebrate afterwards, not on #GA. He also follows that up, but it's time now to either scrap the age group at club level or give it the respect it deserves. Boys from Ardrahan and Clarenbridge deserve better after beginning the training last March. And finally, it gets better. Clarenbridge are out in the first round of the 2019 Championship the following Saturday against Kilnadeem and Leitrim. Make of that what you will. That is farcical, that a championship is being played the following year. That's like back in the early 1900s and around the War of Independence time, whereby an All-Ireland Championship in 1921 was played in 22. And like, it is a joke. And what would you do about it? Would you get rid of the under-21 grade at club level, or do you think?
I definitely would. I definitely wouldn't get rid of it, because I think it's a brilliant grade, and some of the best matches I even saw in Offaly or even at county level were at 21 grade last year. Like, it can't be that hard to coordinate things. We somehow managed to play our under-21 final on the 21st of December, I think.
We just about got to play for Christmas.
Just about got to play for Christmas. And this weekend, our intermediate side are playing the 2018 Division 3 league final on Saturday. Like, and these are intermediate players that there was nothing stopping these games being played. So I don't know. You just really have to wonder. Listen, I know it's a thankless job. Fixture making is a thankless job, but there has to be a better way.
See, 21s tends to fit into kind of an awkward schedule no matter what county they're in. So you either are entirely rootless about it, and he played very early in the year as under-20 championships are coming around and maybe the end of club leagues and so on, or you try and wait until your county are out, and then say if your county is successful, say there's dual players playing across, inevitably which will be in an under-21 club team.
You've seen your club and everything holds on.
And then it gets pushed beyond the senior championship, and then you're at the behest of the weather, you're all sorts of problems.
Early is better. I think early is better.
The way you have to do it.
Full round of fixtures again this weekend in Division 1A and B. Clare, Wexford, Tipp, Kilkenny, Limerick, Cork. Then in 1B, Offaly, Galway, Carlow, Laois and Dublin, Watford. We can't but talk about Tipperary first because, lads, Eamon O'Shea is back. Tipp are back. Tipp are back. Feels like 2008 around here.
Let's get this blue and amber away.
It does feel like 2008 around here because, like, I actually did up a couple of photos. You remember that 10-year challenge was in vogue there a while ago on social media? I fell victim to it myself, putting up a photo from 2009 and 2019. We've got a few of those done for the remaining links to 2008 for Tipperary. So Eamon O'Shea was obviously the coach back then. So I think it's coming up on the screen. Look at that, the then and now. The then and now. We move on to Liam Sheedy there. This is a striking one. Look at that. Oh. That man has changed. That's full Obama at the start and the end of the administration.
I always think he looks like the Lego man.
And that his hair clips on and clips off. Yeah. Fine head of hair. And then finally, the one playing link from 2008 is, of course, Seamus Callanan. Look at that change over the years. Jesus. I remember that young Seamus Callanan hanging out in Callanan's shop in Shanahan's shop in Borrisley. That's how he used to look back then. There he is now. Anyway, Eamon O'Shea being back, good or a bad step?
I'd have to say it's a good step. I'd say Liam probably would have had him in as the main coach if it was possible. That's no disrespect to Tommy Dunn or anything like that. I just think he knows from having worked with him and the effect that he has on players and the style of play that he would create. Having him there in any capacity can only be a positive in my view. I don't see it as a negative where he's thinking, he has to go back to this kind of tried and tested thing. It is tried and tested. He was an inter-county manager only a couple of years ago as well. I think it's a smart move.
Well, yeah, I think Sheedy's played this out very cleverly. Like, even when the press release came out during the week last week, that, you know, he's coming back in, we've got a very clear role for him. They were very defining that the backroom team stays in place as it is.
Not a selector.
Eamon is going to add to the setup, and he's going to be in at the end of the league, so it's not like as if he's coming in to disrupt the apple cart in terms of what they've been preparing for so far. I mean, the more good coaches that you can get involved, the better.
You can't. Like, the importance of, like, Paul Kinnerk is huge in Limerick. The coach is so important now. Now they have Tommy Dunn, they have Darragh Egan. I'm not saying Eamon's going to be coaching every night, but they have another top class coach.
Too many cooks spoil the broth?
I don't see it that way because they'll all have defined roles within the setup. Liam is far too smart not to do that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Paul Kinnerk because even looking at, like, when Limerick got knocked out of the All-Ireland Championship in 2017 in John Kiley's first season, I thought they were very, very poor. They had a very unsure style of hurling. Last year then, his second season, the game plan which Paul Kinnerk would have worked on with John Kiley, it reached its peak and they played some fantastic hurling, albeit only scraped over a couple of the matches against Kilkenny in the quarter-final, semi-final against Cork, and obviously the final against Galway, even though they probably were more than a point better. I'm thinking that Liam Sheedy's going to have to endure a bit of short-term pain before he gets the Tipperary team that he wants, playing the way he wants. I wonder at the moment, they're a bit more tactical this year, trying to be a bit more versatile, playing a lot of guys in the middle eight that are athletic. I just wonder, like, Limerick have the jump of a couple of years in terms of setting up their system, finding players to fit the roles, whereas Tipp are probably so ingrained in the traditional 15 for the most part for so long. I'm wondering, is it going to take a while for these Tipperary players to get used to playing in that more versatile way?
You'll often get a bounce straight away when a manager comes in, but particularly at club level. But at county level, it's a little different. There's an awful lot at play, like, and I don't think you can flick a switch at county level, particularly in Tipp. There's an awful lot of play in the sense that, you know, some guys are getting to a certain age at 30, 31, and then they're blended in with a load of guys, would say, that won the under-21 last year as well. So there's a difficult kind of a mix there. It's a bit different, I would say, than the last time Liam came in as well. So it will take time, and plus, when you have that blend and there's new guys coming in, you don't know, okay, you can think a lad is going to make it and you can have a lad earmarked for a certain spot, but you don't know because he hasn't played at that level. So I think it will take a bit of time. And like, no more than it took Paul Kinnerk and John Kiley a bit of time. Like John Kiley talked about last week in the paper about how he feared for his job after the end of the first year. And you're right, they didn't look well against Kilkenny that night down there. But as long as it's not totally off the cuff and you are playing to some sort of a system or there is a plan, it should come right.
Well, the raw materials are good for Tipp, but obviously the reliance, as we saw even last weekend, is down a central core of players who've been there for quite some time.
Yeah, it's Seamus Callan, Noel McGrath. I think he's only 28 actually. He was a bit younger when he first came on the scene. Paddy Maher, of course. Brendan Maher's going to be back soon. Bonner Maher's there as well. So it is that same core of players.
Last weekend's a very disappointing result when you consider the circumstances of Wexford's injuries.
With 14 men from the first half, and like I'd have to say, I think the Noel McGrath red was too harsh, and I think that's the second time this year.
In what way?
In the way that I don't think that second one was a yellow card. His arm went across the body, and the fact that the hurley went flying.
Once the hurl goes, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I know, but you know as well as I do that just because the hurley goes flying, that doesn't mean that the hurley connected. I think just the arm.
Oh no, not necessarily, but once the hurl leaves,
how it looks,
you're in trouble.
And then the man went down on the ground holding his head because Callan, by mistake, flicked off his head.
There was a sequence of events that didn't make it easy.
I think it was very, very unlucky. But I'd have to say Tipp can feel hard done by with that red card. And Colm Lyons also sent off Tony Kelly very harshly against Tipperary earlier in the year as well, which benefited Tipp. I would say there were 3 frees in attacking positions for Tipp at the end of the game. One clear pullback on Seamus Callan and another clear one on John McGrath that weren't given. So Tipp had the chance to go a point up again late on.
Is this the like Tipp
Defence League?
Tipp Goebbels for the day gone?
As I said.
It's Tipperary's Darren Cleary.
But do you know one question I would ask? Where does Bubbles fit into this team? Because we all know he's got the Rolex wrists, but where does he fit into this team? Will he fit into the style that Liam Sheedy is trying to bring to this team?
He has to find form first.
Yeah, he's going to have to find form, and the one prerequisite with Liam's teams is going to be work rate. And without being smart, that is the question mark. We didn't mention his nickname along from the start as well.
We left Bubbles, Michael Jackson's monkey out of it, but there you go.
But you would worry, not worry, but the work rate is the big thing. When you see Seamus Callan sprinting 80 yards back to hook David McInerney in that first match, is Bubbles going to do something similar? I'd have question marks there. So you can have the Rolex wrists, as you say, but
well, the onus is on him. Like if he works hard enough, he'll get into that team because he's probably the most talented sticksman that Tipperary have. Is that unfair?
That's a fair point. Yeah, it's easier said than done. There's an awful lot of work to get there.
He's a proven scorer in big games as well. And ultimately that's what you want.
Like 6 points from play in the All-Ireland final in 2014, so I mean that doesn't happen by accident, especially against the Kilkenny team as well.
Maybe he'll look at him as an impact sub.
Well, 1-3 or 1-4 in the 2016 final as well. Like we've seen him do it time and again, so from a Tipperary point of view, I mean as a Tipperary man, I'd like to see him get back to that form again. It's time for the debate, Will. You're going to take over as the mediator here.
Yeah, we're going early on this one, and we're talking about Limerick, the league out in front at the moment, the league leaders, obviously the All-Ireland champions as well. Everyone's been very impressed, particularly by their work rate against Kilkenny last weekend when they won at Nolan Park. And the argument we have is whether this kind of style of hurling that Limerick are playing at this time of year, which is very, I guess, work rate based.
Or total hurling.
Total hurling. Is it going to work this summer? That's Saint versus Verney for this week. You've decided, Shane Stapleton, to argue it's not going to work this summer?
No.
Right. 60 seconds on the clock, lads.
Yeah, take it away.
Is going to make the argument. Take it away.
Well, look, they're playing absolutely brilliant hurling, don't get me wrong at the moment, but when it gets to the height of the summer, you're going to be up against teams that are completely fired up, full intensity. Nobody is at full intensity at the moment. Everyone's got really high training loads. You see Tipperary falling off last week. You see Limerick or Kilkenny falling off this week, down a lot of their main players as well. Like winning an All-Ireland gives you a confidence, but it doesn't mean that you go from scraping past Kilkenny, Cork and Galway to win an All-Ireland to all of a sudden just having so much time on the ball. They're playing it around on the back and it's at the back. It's working great now. What happens during the summer when a team is up, is really getting stuck into you and plants you? You're going to think twice about playing that short ball the next time. As we've seen in the past, Brian Cody finds a way to beat a team the second time around. Got absolutely annihilated by Galway in 2012 Leinster final. Comes back, draws with them in the All-Ireland final and hammers them then in the replay as well. Don't forget that Clare hammered Limerick in Munster last year. You can't just forget that and think all of a sudden Limerick are the greatest team of all time. Tipp won the All-Ireland in 2016, started 17 well and fell off. It may happen to Limerick.
I think you got about a free 5 seconds there at the start as well because Shane Hannon wasn't ready with it. By the way, the belt we're playing for this week, because Michael Verney's belt has gone back.
It's safe in my bedroom.
It's safe now at the moment. Is Andy Lee's North American WBA belt. I don't know exactly how happy he'll be about the fact he's a Limerick man that we're putting his belt up on the line this week.
Yeah, there's a bit of a John Motson inside on it as well.
There is. It's half a sheep inside this.
Yeah.
So, there we go.
Yeah, that's
kindly donated to the Off the Ball studio by Andy Lee, so it feels right to put it up. for this one. So that's obviously the debate in terms of Shane Stapleton's argument. He has proposed it's not going to work this summer. Michael Verney, with probably an extra 5 seconds before the clock starts, you're going to argue that Limerick are A-OK with the way they're playing.
Yeah, I think it's a great sign. With, like Shane was talking there about how other teams are in big training loads. Limerick are probably in the biggest training load of any team because it would have started back later than any other team. If this style is working at this stage of the year when they've only practiced it minimally, I think it's only obvious to say that they're going to get better throughout the year. Maybe it doesn't look like they can get much better, but they will get better throughout the year. This is going to be practiced and it's going to be refined. They played a similar style last year, but this is just going to be, this has been developed a little bit more again. John Kiley said they weren't going to play the same tactics as last year. It's already a little more advanced. They're playing triangles of passes. This is only going to get better throughout the year. You look at, are they going too well at this stage of the year? Kilkenny always went well during the league. Kilkenny placed a massive emphasis on the league as well, so Limerick are doing likewise. They have that kind of winning combination that if you're going well at one stage in the year, we keep the momentum going the whole way throughout the year. Good league performances lead to good championship performances. I think it's a no-brainer that this Limerick style is going to get more refined and better throughout the year.
Right, Shane Stapleton, respond to that. The fact that Limerick are already on a good road at the moment, perhaps with the way the championships are now, that effectively the Munster Championship is a mini league in and of itself. Limerick have to peak a bit earlier.
Well, like, this is the man who did a piece with Jackie Tyrrell the other day saying Limerick wouldn't even get out of Munster, and you're obviously trying to push that out there as well yourself. That's what you're going to...
Did you put words into Jackie Tyrrell's mouth?
I did not, no. I did not,
yeah. No, look, I think Limerick will be very competitive. Obviously, they're very, very competitive. They're good enough to win the All-Ireland, but God knows, you mightn't get out of Munster this year. Like, Waterford are having a meeting. I think it's next week they're having a meeting with the GA just to see can they use Walsh Park.
Well,
they feel like they're satisfied all the criteria. Be a very
good team and not get out of Munster anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Are we talking about Waterford or are we talking about Limerick?
No, I'm saying Limerick. It's going to be tougher this year again. Who knows if they'll even get out of Munster? Munster's going to be that tough. Like, Limerick could win the All-Ireland, but you mightn't get out of Munster either. And I just think that when the pace ramps up, it's going to be so much harder to play that lovely ball around the back. It's a bit slower, it's harder to get around the field, it's harder to twist and turn, it's easier to pop the ball around. I know the conditions aren't perfect, but it's actually unbelievably summery for February at the moment, you'd have to say yourself. I just don't think it's going to work in the summer when all the players are moving 10% faster.
Hard ground comes round, are Limerick going to be in trouble then?
I think they're going to be even more crisp. It's going to be faster. Their age profile suits that game perfect. High intensity, high work rate. They have all the ball players to do that, missing Keane Lynch and several other brilliant ball players the other day. Hard ground, this team is made for hard ground, and that style is made for hard ground because it's a big, energetic kind of running type of style. I think they will only get better as the summer goes on.
Just to pick up his point as well about them hitting the ground running, right? Shouldn't Limerick be a little bit further behind? They live it on holiday, they were over in Boston, the tournament. Shouldn't everyone else be a bit further ahead than Limerick now?
I don't know, I think that can be overplayed at times as well. Like, I'm sure they were all doing their own training over the winter. They all had their training programs. Some players just benefit from a rest. You know, the Napier guys had been going endlessly for the last number of years, so maybe some of them just needed a few weeks off back. And they're fit young men. Like, they're 22 or 23 years of age, so many of them. I don't think that matters as much as people talk about.
See that right there? Sinking ship.
We'll call it.
Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to go for Michael Verney again on this one.
Another belt. Another one.
All evidence.
He's unifying the belts.
Oh, the champ.
Actually, do we have an image of? I think we have an image of Verney wearing the belt. Actually, I think we have this from earlier. A huge wrestling fan that you are. Yeah, there he goes. All right.
I only wish I was that big.
Yeah, the
winner. The champ. Just my hair is a bit longer than boys. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
He's a better Nick than Triple H.
You're pictured with Selby.
That's right. That's right.
Lads, we have a video here. Tommy Walsh. He was talking about. I think he was. Who was he talking about here? Yeah, after Limerick's win over Kilkenny. This is Tommy Walsh's thoughts.
I think Limerick they proved today why they're the All-Ireland champions. They're playing like a team that just the shackles are gone now. They're just going out. They're not worrying about winning All-Irelands. They're not worrying about fulfilling their potential of the under-21 teams. They're like a team that we've done this and let's go do it again. But listen, if you get over all that side, I just can't. I was mesmerised by their hurling today. Like, in tight corners, they can hit the ball long, then hit the ball short. Whatever way you want to play it, they will play you. They've big guys, they've small guys, and Yeah, they're just so impressive here today.
Yeah, it feels like there's a good game management that champions have. Of that first half hour, there was literally nothing between the sides after half an hour, and they sort of found their way into the game. But the second they got that one chance, the second they got that Shane Dowling goal, that's when everything just clicked into gear. And as you say, the style of hurling that they played with over that 15-20 minute spell was pretty special.
Yes, and you can have all the, like, in that first half, like, even though it was tight, they were making the runs, I felt, and there was a few chances where they got in behind the defence, but the Kilkenny defenders just swarmed them. So there was always going to a time come where maybe the spare Kilkenny defender wasn't there, and they had to break in for a goal. But yeah, their ability to play around with the ball, like Shane Dowling, we see him, like, it's their hurling. They must be doing serious hurling training. Like, usually this time of year it's a lot of running, a lot of physical work, a lot of gym work. But I suppose now with the AstroTurf pitches and the lights and all that, they can do a lot more hurling. But they were playing as if it was September.
And that's the thing, I think secretly Tommy is agreeing with me. They're playing like it's a bit too late in the year at this point. One of the standout players from the game had to be Tom Condon, and he'd have to go down as the GOAT of the week for me as well. He had an unbelievable performance. A guy 31 years of age who a couple of years ago looked like he was actually kind of finished. There he is, the GOAT of the week. No, but a couple of years ago he did look like he was pretty much finished at this level, and he was on the bench more often than not. And he's having an Indian summer.
Yeah, he looked a bit leggy even a couple of years ago. Like, he was flying the other day. He was out in front every time. Even the score he got, I think they said on TG Carter's commentary that John Kiley was actually going mad when he took the shot. But it went over and he was just full of confidence. He probably epitomised the game plan more than any other player. Like, he was burning up the field, and it was all clever hand passes as well. I thought he was superb, yeah. As a cornerback, it's not grand to have them in the limelight for once.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well,
there you go. It's the free taker who usually wins the awards at the end of a week or the end of a year. But no, he did a big display. And like, Limerick were just so ruthless in that spell in around half time against Kilkenny as well. Because sometimes Limerick teams have passed, maybe would have left teams in a game. But just like when that first goal went in, they were like, right, we're going to bury the game by half time.
Do you know what was really interesting in that game? Do you remember the goal for, it was the second goal, I think it was Conor Boylan.
Yeah.
That the ball broke just outside the penalty area. Graham Mulcahy went over to pick it up with Conor Delaney, and he went out a couple of times. And you'd think normally Conor Delaney would have been buried in the ground with that, especially a smaller man than him as well.
And he got turned very easy then after.
He got him a couple of chances, and I just thought that was very un-Kilkenny. Like, even the first goal where the ball, it was a long ball into the area, there was a ruck of 5 or 6 players. Gillan somehow gets it out, hand passes it over to Dowling, who cracks it into the net. Unbelievable shot. I just thought it was quite un-Kilkenny. Like, now they are missing players or whatever, but yeah, it just didn't quite seem like Kilkenny. Maybe that's down to Limerick. It was actually interesting that at half time, Richie Hogan, he did an interview with TG Carter, which I thought was very, very unusual that he did. That a current Kilkenny player would do an interview at half time, and he said Limerick are playing with at least 11 defenders. I thought that was a very interesting comment, and to some degree, because they bring the half forwards back to their own 45
kettle black, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is very much pot kettle black. And the fact that he's saying it out loud, does that just show that this is something that's on Kilkenny minds and they're trying to think, how do we actually beat this?
Fair point, yeah, and like Brian Cody will hate that, I'd imagine.
The fact that he said it.
The fact that he said it and the fact that he did it. I'd say he was probably doing his old teammate Michael Rice a favour, I'd say, by doing it probably. But yeah, it does probably show it's undermined, and it's been undermined since last August or late July since they played, like, yeah, so, and it was probably a frustration that they couldn't get around it then, and it didn't look like they were going to get around the Sunday again. So it's on their minds. It's obviously something that's on their minds. And you've mentioned before that Cody, when they play a team again, if they do meet them at a later stage, the result is rarely the same as the first time, if it was a reversal the first time. So it'll be interesting to see what they're developing, if they're trying to develop some sort of style against it.
And a signature win at Nolan Park as well. A few teams have actually done that in the past couple of years. We might talk about Davy later, and the fact that Davy Fitz has had so many breakthrough wins with this Wexford team. But last year, a couple of years ago, they lost at home to Wexford for the first time in 60 years. Was it Kilkenny?
It's the night that Davy Fitz was locked into a box, I think you recall. He had to get out,
actually, no, that one was in Wexford Park.
That was Wexford Park,
It was the year before, or maybe the year after, in the league, actually. And then losing at home to Limerick here was the first time in about 8 or 9 years that they played them in the league, because Limerick had been in the second tier. But what does that say about Kilkenny?
Well, obviously, without the Ballyhale players, like, one of the things about the TG Carr coverage that I thought was interesting was they cut so many times the Ballyhale players that were sitting in their Kilkenny tracksuits in the stand, and you're kind of thinking there's a lot of firepower there that still has to come back in for Kilkenny. But again, like, I guess, was it last year or the year before, we were kind of wondering how's that Kilkenny defence going to work, and obviously they had the full-back experiment to try and work out. Kilkenny still have a lot of question marks around their selections. I think we have a reasonable idea what their best 15 is, but like, their midfield isn't settled yet. There's still, I think, decisions to be made around that half-back line as well. Kilkenny still, to me, feel like, despite winning the league last year, and despite, as we said last week, that they weren't a million miles away from Limerick in an All-Ireland quarter-final, at the same time, they are a bit of a work in progress. Like, Cody is still rebuilding this team at the moment.
At times, they looked a mile off in a couple of those games against Galway in the Championship last year.
Yeah.
They did, yeah. The only thing I will say is before that first goal went in the other day, that was dead tight, and they turned over Limerick. They had a similar work rate. There was a load of bodies in around the middle third. They were turning over ball. Limerick didn't have that much time in the ball. And it's funny, they got done to them exactly what they've done to everybody over the last 10 or 15 years. Limerick smelt blood and just went to town, and the game was over by half time.
Yeah.
That'll frustrate Cody, that much like Offaly against Laois, that they didn't just maybe stem the blood or just get back into the game or get a score or something like that, you know.
And as well, if you compare and contrast what John Kiley and Brian Cody are up against, this time last year in year 2 for Kiley, he was missing all his Napier players, who were very, very important players, and I think we'll see possibly more of them in the starting lineup this year because they'll have the league to work their way into the team. Whereas Brian Cody is without his Ballyhale guys, and I was speaking to a guy from Ballyhale the other day who said no Ballyhale, no Kilkenny. Basically that they rely so much on them, which in recent years you could certainly back up. But
can I just say something on that? The players that Kilkenny are missing are all mainstays.
They're more, the guys that Limerick are missing aren't as, they're just as good at players, but there's not the same drop off when they dig deeper into the panel as there is for Kilkenny.
And Limerick have that great position where a lot of their players are interchangeable, which is superb.
Well, that's the contrast with Tipperary that I was talking about earlier, that Tipp aren't at that stage just yet.
No,
there's a bit of pain before they get to that.
Yeah. So Kilkenny, like the players Kilkenny are missing are, a lot of them are central players and they're leaders as well. So like, it's a kind of a catch-22. Missing their leaders, they're under pressure when they're missing their leaders. But when they have them, it just gets everything so much better around it. Like, but they'd obviously like to be in the position, Limerick's position, which is an unbelievable position.
And one final point about Limerick as well. They had changes all across the field, but the way that Kiley did it is he had, like, Tom Condon from the team that would have played the All-Ireland last year. Tom Condon was in the full back line, Paddy O'Loughlin half back line. Who's the midfield? Robbie Hanley, was it? In the midfield. Conor Boylan, who wasn't in the Pierce team for the club final in 2018, and Barry Murphy, who did score a goal against Tipperary in the Championship last year. So it's not like he's making wholesale changes in one area of the field, little change everywhere, and it kind of worked a bit more seamlessly, and all those lads probably feel like real options now as well.
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in that. If you get your opportunity, it's very important that when you get your opportunity at cornerback, that the man in front of you, the man at a diagonal to you, and the man to your left or right is experienced. You don't want another rookie beside you. And I think he's given them a really fair shot at by doing that, because there's no excuses then. You have experienced bodies around you. Tom Condon had Sean Finn beside him, and he'd Dermot Burns or whoever in front of him. You're giving someone a very good shot. If they're able to swim in that sort of situation, chances are they're going to be able to swim come championship.
At this point, we're going to have to say goodbye to Will. Will, thank you very much for joining us this week. In the meantime, we'll have a little word with Owen Shane spoke with Jackie Tyrrell on OTB AM this week about the pain of losing to Tipp in 2010.
There's a smile on his face.
This slogan that was going around Kilkenny all that early that year, Drive for 5, just the harrowing loss of losing an All-Ireland, taking out 5 in a row or 2 in a row and 3 in a row. Losing an All-Ireland is absolutely, it's gut-wrenching. It tears apart your inside. You're weeks, months later, you're driving down the side of the road and you feel like just pulling in and crying. It just tears you apart from the inside out. And they're things that you'll just carry with the rest of your life. And obviously the 5 in a row then it kind of heaped a bit more hurt and pressure on it. Tipperary beating us as well, and it just all culminates into a disaster of a day and a year for us.
Yeah, I would say it was the opposite. It was a great day and a great year in 2010. We have a couple of comments coming in, and don't be afraid to send them in on YouTube. Twitter and Facebook as well. Martin Furlong on Twitter says, Year 3 could be Davy Fitz's best year for Wexford. Those under-21s that won 3 Leinster titles are hitting their prime, and with Casey, Byrne and Dunbar as new additions, we look a serious team going forward, especially when we had 7 missing for the Tipp game. Rob Hartigan on YouTube says, lots of talk that Limerick are peaking too early. Does this stand up in the modern game? Kilkenny and their Pomp won league and All-Ireland multiple times. If you look, Limerick's hurling is actually still way off. To be fair, actually Galway won the league in 2017 and the All-Ireland after it as well, so maybe I'm
Limerick would have been thereabouts last year if they hadn't been beaten by Tipp in the semi-final too, do you know what I mean? So kind of stands up. I think it's more important to keep momentum than to try and peak at a certain time. Obviously they're trying to peak at a certain time, but it's very important to have momentum, especially when on the back of winning Ireland. If they were to win the league, I think it would be massive for them.
And like people do say the league is the league, and I do get that, but you get confidence from every win you have, and every debilitating loss you have, you know, can affect your psyche for the rest of the year. I think Tipp in 2017, to just mention them again, got to the league final as All-Ireland champions, got absolutely annihilated. I think it was 16 points to Galway, and never recovered from it.
It'll be very interesting when Limerick have their first setback. And if it's not a 1 or 2 point defeat, let's just say it's a 10 point defeat. Someone beats them by 10 points, blitzes them. That'll be interesting then, just to see how they react to it. Because everything is rosy at the moment.
Well, they reacted to it pretty well against Clare last year in the last Munster game. It cost them a Munster final, and they went on Monday.
Very true,
Ireland.
Very true. But it's different now. There's an expectation as champions. It'll just be interesting. Maybe they won't have any setbacks. Maybe they'll win all their games, or they'll only be beaten marginally. But it will be interesting if they have a setback.
Dougie Howlett with Cork. Did you notice that he was on the sideline for Cork this weekend? And when he was asked afterwards, manager John Moyler, he wasn't really giving that away. He said his response to what was his involvement in the setup was, "He's a good lad." And that's what he had to say. Well played, John.
That's the most Irish thing you could say. Like, what do you say to that?
What do you mean he's a good lad? And obviously he was giving nothing away. What do you make of someone like Dougie Howlett, like a legend of New Zealand rugby, never mind Munster rugby? What do you make of someone like that being involved?
Well, obviously, like, he's not going to have technical expertise or anything about hurling, but what he can bring, like his professional background, what it takes to make it at the top, all those are like, everyone on the Cork team, I'm sure, is going to know who Doug Howlett is, know what he's achieved. They will take his words of wisdom. They'll take his words of wisdom very, very, you know, they'll go in, they'll believe everything he's saying, basically, and they'll take on board what he's saying. I'd say it's probably a performance coach type thing, I would imagine. Yeah, because like there's part of me that thinks, it's great, you could have someone coming in giving you the, you know, and like Dennis Leamy with Tipperary in 2016, he's probably coming in talking about preparation, nutrition, the benefits of a professional attitude and all of that. And okay, I get it, but right, take away that talk where he'd have that talk with them. Is it a bit of a cod after that? Is it really going to change how you are from one day to the next based on a conversation with someone who was successful in a professional sport? And you know how hurling people are a little different as well, and can see through. How should we say? See through, not bluffers or anything like that, but he can't give them advice about hurling. That's possibly the most snobbish thing we've ever had. Yeah, could well be, but they can't give them any technical advice, and hurling is such a technical game. I just imagine it would be things to do with their lifestyle, maybe goal setting, maybe he's doing a bit of psychology as well. You wouldn't know. I'd say it's just kind of being the best you can be, we'd say, off the pitch, that type of thing. When you were hurling for Offaly, did you ever have someone from an outside sport come in? Did we ever have anybody? I was actually with the Offaly footballers for a brief period, and we had a good talk from Tomás O'Leary one time, and Shane Lowry came in and gave a talk one time as well, actually, which was, you'd always pick up something. Now I can't remember anything offhand, but obviously stuck with you. Yeah, a lot of those kind of things successful people tend to say the same thing. Yeah. And a lot of it is hard work and being organised and using your time efficiently. And honesty is generally a word that comes up time and time again. This weekend we're going to have the battle of the new managers. It's going to be Pádraig Fanning, who's unblemished record with Waterford so far, albeit against Laois, Carlow and Offaly teams that won't be challenging for big honours this year, against Matty Kenny, who had I would say he's very unimpressed with his team's performance going home to Galway. Dublin didn't look good at all. 1-2 from the starting forwards. Can't say he's got to be too happy with that. I think Dublin, when they have their best 15 out, have a very, very good team. I think when they're missing a couple, there's a bit of a drop-off. Yeah, but it looked like that the other day, to be honest with you. The backs, we've always said that they have good backs, and possibly the best 6 backs maybe as a collective unit are up there anyway. But it was like a ball alley the other day. And like no matter how much ball is coming into the back line, there's very little you can do if there's an awful lot. If it's just when you clear it, it's coming back into you. That's what it was like the other day, particularly around from I'd say 8 up. Dublin won very, very little breaking ball, and there was no turnovers, no anything like that. No,
which Matty would pride himself on. Like,
yeah, no, I know.
I can tell you for sure that winning turnovers, winning 50-50 ball, that'll all be key, and that'll be something he'll focus on. Interesting, they've no goals conceded after 3 games, which will be a positive and something he'll be very happy about as well. But obviously conceding a little bit too much and making Galway are obviously down players as well. Sean Loftus is a guy I could see stepping up this year in midfield, and I'm sure Cathal Mannion is going to come up for you as well.
Yeah.
Like, do you think for Galway it's nice, Division 1B, get a bit of confidence and we're rolling again?
It's grand. It's not as cutthroat. They're getting a chance to give, Sean Blahan as well, and a couple more, Fitzpatrick as well. They're getting a chance to blood a few boys. Maybe that they blooded a few lads last year through the league, but I think that Michael Verney probably needs to, or probably realises now that they need more. They're going to need. They can't just be bringing along the same 2 or 3 subs. They can't just pull Flynn and Niall Burke on when they're in trouble. They need to have a couple more guys. And I think, in fairness, they seem to be doing their best to kind of develop a few more. But it was. I just couldn't believe it was a no contest. I really couldn't believe that Dublin didn't bring more.
I think Dublin might have a bit of a psychological issue with Galway. They've taken a couple of beatings off them in the last 5 years. But just coming back to the battle of the new managers this weekend, Watford very much chased Matty Kenny in the close season before he took up the Dublin role, and I believe that the players actually contacted him as well, trying to get him on board as well. So I'm sure Pádraig Fanning would really like to get one over on Dublin, wouldn't he?
Oh, he would, of course, yeah. And Watford have had a nice little lead into this. 3 kind of pipe openers, get a bit of hurling back into Shane Bennett, get the brick back on again. I think they've been motoring nicely enough. It'll be an interesting game. I thought Watford kind of disposed of Carlow very well the other night in awful conditions, very, very well. I know Mouse Kavanagh went off before half time and could be missing for Carlow this weekend, more likely to be missing than playing. But Watford have gone about their business very well. Stephen Bennett's absolutely flying up front. Yeah, it'd be interesting one. Pádraig Fanning, you'd imagine he probably already feels he has a point to prove after being second man to, we'll say, Cheddar, and second man to Davy as well. So yeah, if someone else was in for the job maybe before him, I'm sure he'd like to get one over on him, and it would set Dublin back a little bit as well. Two bad results in a row wouldn't be great. Yeah,
as well. If I was I think you can come in at the right time. A lot of people would say that Pádraig Fanning is probably coming in at the wrong time because it's on the back of Derek McGrath and how much all the players basically loved him and probably have been with him for so many years, even through De La Salle College. But the plus side for Pádraig Fanning might be this is the year that they actually have Walsh Park for their championship games. Now the county board are meeting with the Munster officials on Thursday week. This day next week, and they're very confident that the capacity has been set at 11,000 and they'll be able to play their matches at Walsh Park.
It's massive, isn't it?
If I was them and the Munster Council said to me, no, you can't play your games there, I would go full Newbridge or nowhere and just say, well, look, we're not going to play at all if you don't.
I think so, because it's hard enough to get out of Munster. It's hard enough to get out of Munster with home games, but playing all games away, that's a disastrous situation. As they saw last year, they're going to need every edge. If they did get back into Walsh Park, it would kind of unite them as well, and it's a very good opportunity for Fanning if he pushes the ball out and really goes for this, like Cian O'Neill did with Newbridge last year. It will get the whole county behind him straight away, and if they do make the last 3 in Munster, they're behind him even more again. So I think that's a win-win situation there. I just think they have to put all their eggs in that basket, I would say, because otherwise they're on the back foot straight away before the start.
We did a debate a couple of weeks ago about whether Diarmuid Connolly should be in with the Dublin Hurlers, whether Matty Kenny should go after him. He was asked by Stephen Doyle on Sunday after the game against, who did Dublin play the other day again? Against Galway.
Yeah.
And this was his response. We'll come back with the tactics board.
You can shoot this down if you want as well. Look, obviously there was a lot of talk the last couple of weeks about Diarmuid Connolly coming back to Dublin, being in training, that kind of thing. Was he ever on your radar at all to maybe try and get him in with the hurling panel?
No, he wasn't. Because I haven't spoken to Jim. No, he's no. The answer is I haven't spoken to him.
And if he wasn't going to play football this year, do you think you'd be interested in maybe giving him a call and try and get him involved?
I don't think so. I'm quite happy with the squad I have at the moment. We have a lot of talent and quality in our squad, so we picked our squad for the league, and this is what we're moving forward with.
Okay, we're up at the tactics board here.
The big question there before we started is, how did you win that debate? And Matty Kenny just completely kicked it out of the park. Not a hope of Connolly ever been involved.
Well, it's irrelevant. The debate was, should he? Should he go after him? It's not whether Matty will do it or not.
Well, Matty
has his own mind and he doesn't always agree with what I say. God knows he left me on the bench when I told him otherwise. Okay, we're up at the tactics board and we want to talk about the art of defending a puck out. Tipperary against Kilkenny this weekend. How do Kilkenny defend a puck out? They've been masters at for years and God knows they have killed Tipperary so many times in this area. So we're going to have Kilkenny in the red here, Tipperary in the blue.
Yeah, the art of defending a puck out, when you say defending, it starts with attack realistically. So they're going to just, in their own 65, they're attacking 65 with the tip keeper here. They're going to try and cover off as many avenues as possible. So first things first, we're going to get rid of 2 people there anyway. And their 2 corner forwards, or maybe the full forward, is going to squeeze in. And we're going to squeeze in here. So they're trying to cover off channels here to cornerbacks. They might just chance here actually. They might chance him giving it to the cornerback here and push up straight away. And the halfback will be around here and they try and cut off that avenue as well.
All this middle zone from the centre back to the full back is completely open.
This guy is going to be here. These guys are going to be basically intercepting. You're going to see what the keeper. You're going to see what way he's setting up. If you think he's going short, you're squeezing in straight away. Conor Whelan is one of the best to do it for Galway. He'll come across like this. He'll work around this area. Yeah, and that's it exactly. You want to make the keeper think, oh, I have 10 yards here that I can head into. But you have it in your head, I think he might play that 10 yards and I'm going to be gone straight away. So that's something like that. You're going to have him here. That frees up 2 forwards, which is ideal. So we're going to bring the 2 forwards are probably going to be out here around the middle of the pitch.
So
here.
These are the 2 Kilkenny forwards you're saying have vacated.
Kilkenny forwards, yeah.
And the midfielders for Kilkenny are dropping back.
Yeah. Line of 5-ish. Maybe either one of these can go here as well.
I would imagine the centre back would be told, you can sit back a little bit. These midfielders will be in front. And everyone's got the chance to push forward.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, I would suggest that the Kilkenny forwards be a little bit more like this. And then the midfield would kind of, so I wouldn't say it's quite as rigid. I think that they'd be dropping back, splitting in between the lines. I don't think they'd quite go the whole way out. But I do think the midfielders want to get back as far as possible. The centre back, basically the centre forward is going to be approaching midfield. The full forward is going to be approaching the centre back. Because if I'm the opposition team, I'd say, do you know what, hit it to your full back if you want, because he'll get the ball and he'll just have to turn and stroke at 100 yards.
That's exactly what they want. They've no problem with that.
That's what James Barry will get all weekend. He'll be told, whether it's Paul Maher in goals, whether it's one of the Hogans in goal, that James Barry will get the ball there, he'll stand, plant the feet and drive it 100 yards, which means it's going straight into these 5 guys in the Kilkenny half-back line, which has killed Tipperary for years.
At all, yeah. I think there'll be less Kilkenny bodies in there. I think they'll go more kind of Galway-esque. Galway usually go with that 4. It'll be 4, maybe 5, but they'll, especially if it's an inexperienced keeper, if it is Paul Maher again, I don't think they'll have any problem with testing him, letting him go 50 and 60 and see can they intercept one. It's such a big thing now if you can intercept a sharp puck out as well. Chances are it could be a goal if you intercept one, So I think they'll put him just thinking, should I hit it or should I not? I think they'll put that kind of onus on him at the weekend.
Yeah. Just to move on to tackling, Clare, it really killed Clare at the weekend. Yeah. They gave away so many frees. I think Patrick Horgan, 15 of his 16 points were frees. It was a game that Clare should have won. So what are Clare doing wrong? And how do you tackle properly?
It's high. That's a lot of it, and they're giving the referee a chance to blow. A lot of it is high, and it's very confrontational, shall we say. It's very kind of abrupt. It's straight in, kind of almost like straight in on top of the man.
So I'm walking towards you.
Yeah, it's straight in. It's straight in, rather than maybe hold them up a bit more. You're having contact straight away, so you're giving the referee a chance to blow. And when your hurl is in around here as well, if your hurl slips up at all, anywhere near his face or anything like that, it's a free. Then there's also the thing as well, where a couple of them were the other day, where a man has the ball and he's dipping down a small bit, and a lot of the hands are high and they're going around the neck, and that's a yellow card.
But that's a player being cute as well. You'd see
very cute,
players intentionally putting their head in where the hurley is.
Very cute,
and then flopping as well.
It's particularly a smaller fella will do that as well, yeah.
What about the art of like you'd see a lot of teams, they have the half foul, not quite enough for the referee to blow it, but it does stop you delivering the ball. So if I'm going along, you're going to pull and drag out of my arm just a small bit, and I'm trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And then I'm being blown for steps. Now, an occasion where it really stood out for me, I think Fergal Horgan is a brilliant referee, but the 2017 All-Ireland, he really lets the game go. A few times towards the hour mark, and it was touch and go who's going to win the game. Waterford players were going along being half fouled, half pulled and dragged by the Galway players. A free wasn't given, and then they were blown for steps. and I thought it was infuriating. And that is where the real issue is in hurling right now. If there is an issue, tackling it's fairly undefined. I mean, it's a case of, you know what a free is. I mean, I couldn't tell you what it is, but you know yourself. And that is the problem. But
just on that as well. And I know this is talked about among referees, and particularly at referee panels when they meet in Croke Park, because I've been chatting to some of the referees. You have that split second, just put your hand for a second, you have that split second where you hold, but then you must go. Then it must go straight away.
But it's enough to slow me up, and then the ref's going to blow me for throwing the ball.
You've taken a couple of steps and you're under pressure then.
I would have hand passed it properly if you weren't pulling out of my arm.
Exactly, and I'm given, by just holding that second, not letting you release the ball, another man could be in the far side. Then maybe you have no option, then you just can't release the ball at all. So it's a very, very tricky thing. If a referee was to pull every one of them, the hurling, it just wouldn't move. The game wouldn't function properly at all.
God knows I've done more fouling than anyone in the club over the year, but like, if you're coming in with the ball, I want to kind of get to a situation where I'm just holding you back a little bit and I'm able to shadow you then and just wait for you to throw the hurley up on the ball and flick. I don't go for a flick until you're throwing the hurley up on the ball. Another good bit of advice that was given to me, I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, is I am huge for the idea of coming in and planting you with a shoulder and seeing if I can bury you onto the ground. It's probably, outside of scoring or catching a high ball, it's probably the most enjoyable thing in hurling to plant someone on the ground. God knows it's happened to me as well. But this coach that we had from Ballyhale, John Darmody Smiley, he came in and he was like, will you stop trying to kill the lads every time you come in with a shoulder? Because most of the time, if I shoulder you full force while you're going along, you're just going to be able to ride the tackle, drive on, and you're actually gone 10 yards away from me from my own force.
That's a fact. You're actually knocking them away from you,
And I saw the Tipperary under-21s do it time and again last year, even though they went on to win the All-Ireland brilliantly, great intensity, but it was something I was like, you could get a few extra scores or get a few extra turnovers.
There was a Cork goal, I think, in final where they had him boxed up, they gave him a shoulder and actually knocked him out.
And I think it's an area that Tipp, even the senior team, it's something that probably needs to be worked on a little bit. The art of the tackling isn't perfect there, and those are a couple of examples of things where I think Tipp, for one, could adjust this year.
Just on another one as well, when obviously just if you're facing away there and I'm trying to get a flick in, Christy Ring had a great saying, you pull or hit where you think the ball is. So like a lot of the time I'd say it was fairly broken fingers and things like that, but you pull, if there's a genuine effort to pull where you think the ball is, the referee will usually give it the benefit of the doubt.
And Matty Kenny, Dublin manager, he would always say, if you're close enough to foul, you're close enough to put in a good tackle. Anyway, Brian Cody was speaking to us after the defeat to Limerick, so here's what he had to say.
Brian, that was some blitzkrieg by Limerick in the 5 minutes before half-time, 5 minutes after half-time. How do you look back though on the full 70?
Yeah, they were the key moments in the game, alright, coming up to half time. Like, we played against a very, very strong win the first half, and we were really competitive, playing really well, really in the game. And then, in the space of a couple of minutes, they put in 2 goals, probably both preventable as well. That was the disappointing thing about it, and that gave them a real cushion then to go on with confidence. And for the first 10-15 minutes, the second half, they dominated. We made mistakes, we gave away a ball, but we responded very well again, So and we finished very strongly and even missed handy opportunities as well for a few more scores. So look, the scoreboard is the scoreboard. We're going away having lost by that much, but I'm not going away totally despondent or anything like that, because there was definitely positives in the game as well.
What were they? What are you taking from it?
Certainly the first 20-25 minutes playing against an outstanding team, the best team in the country, were certainly positives, because we were going out with a fair few players without a lot of experience, to be fair, and playing against a really strong wind, so they would have been looking at getting a good cushion behind them. But we were strong all over the field. Walter Welsh was playing outstanding hurling as well there in centre forward. So look, we were really in the game, and then, like I said, a lapse of concentration or just a mistake, and suddenly there's daylight between us. So that was a positive, that start. And the other positive then obviously was when they looked like they were going to go out of sight altogether, we responded again and kept fighting. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Was it the 5 minutes after half time then almost more frustrating than the 5 minutes before, when you came out expecting a response, wind at your back, that you let them get those first 3 or 4 scores?
That was disappointing. Obviously to concede 2 goals is not something you want to see happen, but it happens. But like definitely the start after half time, really we were going out to really make a response there, and we gave them the initiative again. But again, it was going to be difficult to win it back, but we did win it back, and we were competitive to the end.
Is this where you use all your experience and make sure some of these younger guys, some of these more inexperienced guys, that they don't drop their heads after defeats like this at home, when you know that there's a lot of players come back from Ballyhale? You'll hope to have Richie Hogan back at some stage as well, that actually you got to take something from this. You got to learn and hopefully use this come the summer.
Yeah, well, we all have to learn from this ourselves, certainly in management and players, everybody together. We have to learn and look at things we could have done better. But I mean, our heads won't drop. We'll drive it on. We have 2 huge matches coming up: Tipperary next Sunday, Wexford the following Sunday. Great challenges, great experience to be getting for players, and obviously, do we want to win them? Of course we do.
Just on the injury situation, where is Richie Hogan in terms of a return?
He's working really hard. He's getting a nice bit of work behind him, just not totally free yet. Hopefully he might be able to come into contention soon. Will it be for next Sunday? It's very hard to say.
Yeah, Richie Hogan would be some player to have back. Just to run through a couple of the topics just before we finish up. Galway sauntered past Dublin. Micheál Donoghue has used 32 players now. Joseph Cooney, he hasn't been seen yet. He said that he's in Australia. We're keeping tabs on him, similar to the rest of the lads. I don't know if he'll be back. We'll have a conversation in the next few weeks. When he went out on the Australia trip, he stayed. That was all planned. No surprise. We'll see over the next couple of weeks. Joseph Cooney is a guy who was able to go into the half-back line when they needed last year. He's been a really impressive player in the forward line at times as well. So that would be a big loss.
Big versatile player as well, in fairness. If you have a player like that can equally go back from like half forward to half back, that's huge. I kind of get the sense that he'll have been over there 3 months in the next couple of weeks. I'd be very surprised if he's not back, particularly like they've a serious shot on All-Ireland. Like they were beating a point in an All-Ireland final when not showing up. Like I'd be amazed if anyone left that ship.
Quick one then about UCC and Mary I in the Electric Ireland Fitzgibbon Cup final this weekend. You're looking forward to it?
Should be a belter. One of my own clubmates is playing. Owen Catley's in the goals for Mary I. He'd become only the 4th Barman to win a Fitzgibbon if he won it. So
after yourself?
No, I never won one. Beaten in the final. Johnny Pilkington.
Oh, that was when my brother Paddy was captain. Yeah,
that's right.
You left that one behind you.
He wasn't captain actually. No,
was he not?
Wasn't captain. No, he wasn't. No, not when we got to the final. He become the 4th Barman after Johnny Pilkington, Mark Mulrooney, and Emmett Nolan. So yeah, that'd be great. And Shane Conway is a player that we haven't talked much about. Kerry, but he's a class player. He's a class actor.
UCC kind of fluked into the final. DCU had him bet, and there was a penalty at the end, and it just felt like DCU should be here, but they're
kind of. And it should be interesting because like Galan has just been, the last couple of weeks, Galan has been delivering an unbelievable performance midweek and then an unbelievable performance at the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what he does now. He won't have to play midweek this week, but he's on some form. That should be a cracking game.
There's no relegation in the league this year, but there's a bit of an anomaly anyway with Carlow and Laois coming at the weekend. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Carlow and Laois play at the weekend. So the winner basically, or if Laois win, they're straight through to the quarterfinals of the league. If Carlow draw or win and then beat Offaly, they're through. But either way, whichever team doesn't win at that, they're going to be facing Offaly in a relegation final with 1B to go down to 2A. But interestingly enough, despite the league structures changing next year, there's still a relegation playoff in 1A because they wanted every team to have 6 games. So whichever 2 teams finish bottom are going to play each other. Now, there's a tiny bit at stake in the sense that if you finish 5th, technically you will have a better seeding for your group in 2020, but not really.
Does it really matter?
No, it's just an extra glorified challenge game.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago or last week we did a piece about Davy and whether he has a shelf life with different teams. Barry Cleary did an interesting tweet after the win over Tipperary and saying Davy now has mostly league but championship wins against Clare home, Cork home and away, Dublin home, Galway home and away, Kilkenny home and away, Limerick home, Tipp home and Waterford away in less than 3 seasons with Wexford, and that's something they couldn't crack before he arrived. So that's very impressive and he should be given kudos for it.
It's very hard to argue with that, and I mentioned it last week as well. The effects that will have on the Wexford generation, players growing up, they've gone to matches and had all these unbelievable memories. They've seen them beat all these top class teams, and that will have a positive effect, no doubt. And like Davy can get a bad rap as well. And just quickly as well, the young fella that he met on the Late Late Show, he had him speaking to the Wexford guys before the match as well. You can say what you like about Davy, but he's a GA man to the core. And he's just genuinely promotes the game unbelievably well. Mm.
And as Michael O'Brien is the name of that young lad.
Yeah, lovely fella, yeah.
One asterisk for Wexford, I'd say, is the free taking, because they had Ian Byrne on it, they've had Rory O'Connor on it, they've had Lee Chin, Paddy Foley, Paul Morris, Conor MacDonald. They need to settle on a free taker because it is something that costs teams in big games.
Davy kind of said after the Wexford game, or the Kilkenny game, when they beat them in the Walsh Cup, he kind of said, Asher, isn't it great to have 4 or 5 different lads that can take them? I'd say he'd much prefer just to have one lad that could take them and score 95% of the time. It is something, as a player, you've watched up the field when you've Dave Tracy, you're confident he's going to score nearly every time. If they're chopping and changing, you're just not as confident. Do you know what I mean? And that's a confidence that spreads throughout the team. I'd imagine it's something he's going to want to get nailed down, but there doesn't look like an obvious candidate to me. Jack Guiney would have been the obvious candidate.
There's another. They're producing any amount of free takers, but nobody actually saying, I'm on them.
Poor old Seamus Casey fell the other day when he was taking a free after scoring 1-1 and was pulled off not long after. But they've lots of options, but I'm sure he'd much prefer to have one option.
And he's against his home county this weekend, Wexford against Clare as well. Another brilliant weekend of hurling on the way. That's it for the hurling show this week. We're back again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Gaelic football show will be on Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. We'll see you all then.